When our days here are finished, you'd call us home to live with you eternally, we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning, good morning. All right, we're going to pick up in chapter 3. There we go. Starting in verse 6 through 11. This one's got quite a number of parts, so I'm just going to do page by page. Anyways, so this is Coming of Solomon, so this is by the Shulamite. So this is the girl anticipating Solomon coming near her. Who is this coming out of the wilderness, like pillars of smoke, perfumed with myrrh and frankincense, with all the merchants' fragrance powders? Behold, it is Solomon's couch, with 60 valiant men around it, of the valiant of Israel. They all hold swords, being expert in war. Every man has his sword on his thigh, because of fear in the night. Okay, so we already talked last time where the Shulamite went out late at night, all by herself. In other words, she was still in a dream. And frankly, I think she's probably still in a dream or daydreaming. One has quite an imagination. Anyway, so this army, the soldiers that are here, they have swords because of fear in the night. All right, this time the dream culminates with Solomon actually coming out. So she actually she went out in the middle of the night because she couldn't find him, and now she found him basically like a triumphal march where he's coming out of the wilderness, out of the forest, with the mighty men of his army. And again, they do a lot of the imagery with the perfumed myrrh, frankincense. They do a lot of talking back and forth between each other where, you're fair, my love, you're as strong as Lebanon's wood, or this, that, or the other. So more imagery with the myrrh and the frankincense. That's going to lead more into the next few slides. Okay, at Solomon's lead, they come out of the forest, or out of the wilderness, and they're there to calm her nerves, because she had went out at night. So they're basically making a statement that they're there to protect her, that everything's fine. Verses 9 and 10, still talking. She says, of the wood of Lebanon, Solomon the king made himself a palanquin. He made its pillars of silver, its support of gold, its seat of purple, its interior paved with love by the daughters of Jerusalem. Okay, we're learning a lot of words here that we don't normally hear. Anybody have an idea what a palanquin is? palanquin. It's a chair. Basically, think of it that way. You have pillar on your version? Okay. A palanquin. I'll get into it a little bit. You'll see why it's probably a better word by its actual meaning, but since we don't use that word, maybe it's not such a good word. But you'll see why. Anyways, it starts off Lebanon. We mentioned before Lebanese wood. It's considered the best. Cedar was used in the temple from Solomon, because it was absolutely the best. All the wood came from Lebanon. It was all the best stuff. Yes. Yeah. There's. He more than likely had one of these palanquin, but let me go on and describe it. I still believe all this is fantasy, dream, imagined. Yes. Okay. At its base, a palanquin is a portable enclosed chair. But we read here, basically verse 10, how it's made. Its pillars have silver, its support is gold, its seat is purple, its interior is paved with love. It's a royal chair. This is for royalty. Purple, remember, is the color of royalty. The dye for purple was always very expensive. Lydia, remember Lydia? She was a seller of purple, so she probably had some wealth because purple was expensive. So that deep purple, deep blue. If I have some time at my last day of this, I'm going to talk about something else that's deep purple, deep blue, and you'll see why. I'm just going to tie it together. But interesting thing that I note is at the very bottom. The chair was made by the daughters of Jerusalem. So, second time through, I actually picked up on that. The first time I didn't. It just didn't register with me. So they made his royal portable chair. Just find that interesting. Okay, so it's in other words, it's quite ornate because it's made with a expensive thing. I don't know what I was doing there. She imagined this chair or throne. It's not throne. Wrong way to spell throne. Throne. It's a. I would imagine the king had a throne, and it, yes, a different type of throne. Oh. Anyways, I would imagine in his palace he had one that was permanent, and then when he was away, he would have this palanquin. Hey, kings have to have their Mm-hmm. 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 And they usually have a carpet purple carpet, red carpet. Mm-hmm. Maybe before, yeah. Ornate, yeah. It doesn't look like your normal chair that you, not like one of these portable folding chairs, right? Yeah. Right. It's a statement. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. It is. Uh, this not everybody just sits in this chair. This one's reserved for the king. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's always that imagery, especially in Revelation, of God sitting on his throne and in a sea of glass, that type of thing. Yeah. This continues again. Shulamite still speaking, and then she tells the makers of this palanquin, "Go forth, O daughters of Zion, and see King Solomon with the crown, of which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, the day of the gladness of his heart." Okay, we all know that Zion's another name for Jerusalem. The crown here, pronounced in Hebrew, I'm not much on Hebrew, but it's called atawa, is a crown or wreath crowned by his mother. His mother was Bathsheba. So this crown, if you think of it in the Greek, it's more like the Stephanos, the crown that's given to a victor of the races. It's not like the diadem, the one that's ordained with jewelry. At least most people think this. And you go to a wedding, you're going to the groom has a crown. That was custom back then. Most people couldn't afford a ornate crown with jewels and gold and diamonds and whatever. Just customary. Again, done back then, isn't done now. I've been to dozens of weddings and never seen a guy with a crown on his head. Well, no, I actually haven't seen a baseball cap on a guy. I've seen some things that are different, but never that. But probably not his kingly crown. Don't believe it was. And this is something that his mother would place onto his head. Continuing on again, this is now chapter 4. So this is the bridegroom. The bridegroom is Solomon, and he praises the bride now. And again, he uses the term fair. Anytime you see the word fair, you want to think of beautiful. It's not how we use it now, but back then that was like a compliment, high compliment. Behold, you are fair, my love. Behold, you are fair. You have dove's eyes behind your veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats going down from Mount Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of shorn sheep, which have come up for the washing. Every one which bears twins, and none is barren among them. Okay. So he first starts off and says, "Oh, you're it. You're pretty. You're beautiful, Shulamite. You're beautiful." Mount Gilead. I had to look this up. It's a high plateau east of the Jordan River. Um, Apparently, that's where goats, the herdsmen would take goats over in that area. Then in verse 2, he compliments her teeth. We've seen some compliments. Jolinda and I were talking about this morning. Okay, comparing to a filly, comparing to other animals. And here we go again. Yeah, he's you're going to see this. He basically starts at the head and starts going down. Anyways, he says, okay, your teeth are like a flock of shorn sheep. Okay, shorn sheep. That's sheep that have had their wool shaved off, and so if the wool was colored, dirty, whatever, as soon as they shear them off, they are white like alabaster. Okay, they are. All right, so he's making a comparison here that you get clean, pretty teeth. Yeah, that's where he went with it. And not only that, the shorn sheep, which have come up from the washing, so they're even cleaner. So okay. So yeah. So we're going to see where he compliments her physically, and some of this is, some of it's like, I wouldn't go there. But he's trying to compare her beauty to the surroundings and the things that they would be accustomed to back then. Okay. Her teeth are white and they glisten. Okay, here at the end, he compares her to fertile sheep, and they're so prolific that each one bears twins. None of them have a single offspring. They all have twins. Like your eggs from your chickens, they have double yolks. It's like saying, your chickens are so prolific, all yolks are doubled. So it is just, it's just like, your chickens are so fertile. That's a good thing. So so you can also extrapolate that, he's talking about her beauty and talking about her as a description. He's implying that she's fertile as well. Fertility back then, that's a compliment, very good thing. All right, Solomon continues. Again, he's starting from the top and coming down. Your lips are like a strand of scarlet, and your mouth is lovely. Your temples behind your veil are like a piece of pomegranate. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built for an armory, on which hang 1,000 bucklers, all shields of mighty men. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle, which feed among the lilies. All right, again, he's starting at the top, so common for women, young women that are betrothed to wear a veil. He also said, there's a two-type veil. I think they probably looked different back then. We don't know for sure. We don't have anyways, she had a veil on at this time because when they're betrothed, they're not supposed to see exactly all the face. But he was able to see her temple, this area right here. So everybody knows what a pomegranate is, right? So your temple area is much smaller than a pomegranate. Anyways, and pomegranates are red. Her lips are like scarlet. Scarlet is red. I believe that he's using the analogy here that the temples are like pomegranate, is that it's desirable. Pomegranate is a it's a piece of fruit. They taste good. They're a little bit different than most fruit, like apples, oranges, or anything else. They have a little. You open them up. They have what's called areoles. This it's the fruit that's on each of the seeds. So I think that he's comparing his temples, her temple, and says, you're beautiful. Your temples are desirable. And then he starts talking about her neck. I wouldn't have gone there. I wouldn't compare somebody's neck. Okay, your neck is like the Tower of David. Okay, the Tower of David, we don't know where it was, where it is. Must have been heavily fortified because of some of the other following information here. But she had a pronounced lean neck. She didn't have anything hanging on it. So that it was desirable to him. So he wants, okay, here, Tower of David is lean up and down. So your neck is like that. And it's built for an armory on which hang 1,000 bucklers. There's another good word, right? Buckler. It's something you just commonly use. A buckler is a tiny shield. They're like this. So in the medieval times, they had chainmail. Okay, they didn't have chainmail back then. Chainmail, if you don't know how chainmail works, if a chain was this big, but they're not, they're real small. They're like that, about the size of maybe a pencil eraser, and they loop in with each other, and then you loop in another one, you loop in another, and it makes a pretty affordable offense for like a knife or something like that. It prevents a knife from entering. What they used back then were bucklers, little tiny small shields, and they laid those over each other. You could think of like fish scales. How fish scales, they have one lay over another and they're a pattern. That's what they use these bucklers for. So a buckler is really just a small shield. Mm-hmm. It was when they were out working, they didn't wear a veil. It's when they would walk in public in the streets. We don't know what they actually look like. I almost put a picture up here of a veil, but it could cover the head. It could cover just like from the nose over to the ears. I mean, it's you see sometimes women, Middle Eastern, they'll have the full garb on, and they cover everything, and so they can only see through the eyes. Was it like that, or was it just a veil draped across, the face? We really don't know. We don't have any. All that has probably rotted. We don't have anything physical to. All we know is a covering. Well, some of the veils now. Right. Well, remember the other use of a veil was basically for a prostitute. Now, did a veil for one of those look different than a young maiden that was betrothed? I'm thinking yes. I don't know. I don't have anything really to base that on. It's just gut feel. I would think, since they are viewed differently, that they would have to look differently. All we know is it's a veil. And you go back to the original Hebrew word. I just have the assumption that they're different. And again, is it a full head covering, or is it just, part of the face? I don't know. Some women that are married now, as they walk down the aisle, they have a veil on, and then the groom will take the veil and lift it up to expose, to see her face. I believe that it was a cultural thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How much was covered? I don't know. Obviously, temples were. I would imagine the nose and the mouth. She would have to see, so it couldn't cover her eyes. Did it cover her head? I don't know. Cultural things, women would cover their hair, but that probably wouldn't be the veil. That would be something else, a scarf or whatever it happened to be. Verse 5, he compares her two breasts to like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. Again, implying that she's fertile. Continues on. Solomon says, until the day breaks and the shadows flee away, I will go my way to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of frankincense. You are all fair, my love, and there is no spot in you. Come with me from Lebanon, my spouse, with me from Lebanon. Look from the top of Amana, from the top of Senir and Hermon, from the lion's dens, from the mountains of the leopards. All right, so this is places we're not really familiar with. Again, he uses frankincense and myrrh, but he starts off and says, until the day breaks, until dawn, until the sun rises. He wants to be with her overnight, basically saying the same thing that she had said in the previous chapter. Okay, myrrh and frankincense are very costly, again, imported spices. Was well known that there was a spice trail that they would trade and bring spices through the area where they actually grew those spices. But this probably refers to a local hill, mount, forest area, whatever have you, that had blossoms, that was fragrant there. They just called it the hill of frankincense or the hill of myrrh because they weren't grown there, for one. again, imagery. So they use this a lot. Talks about different areas. Lebanon, we already talked about. That's where a lot of the wood, prized wood came from. Amana, Sinir, Hermon, all these areas are north of Palestine. I mentioned last time, if I wanted to, okay, I take my bride, I'm going to whisper her away, I'm going to take her to Italy, I'm going to take her to Rome, I'm going to take her to Paris. All these sound like fantastic places. They're well known. These were the Paris and Italy and Rome areas of the time. So these are romantic locations and stuff. He's going to take her to these places. Calls her my spouse. You'll see soon, later on, next few verses. He calls her my sister, my spouse. This is before they're married. This is cultural thing again. This is how they, my spouse to be. My sister is a endearing term. It's what they call bride to be. A little confusing for us because they're not married yet, so he calls her his spouse, but it's spouse to be. Okay, starting verse 9. You have ravished my heart, my sister, my spouse. There he is, he's using it. You have ravished my heart with one look of your eyes, with one link of your necklace. How fair is your love, my sister, my spouse. How much better than wine is your love, and the scent of your perfumes than all spices. Okay. All right, my sister, my spouse to be. In other words, it's still that term of endearment that I just mentioned. She captured Solomon's heart. From one look, he was mesmerized. You know, what's that song? You can melt a guy's heart. Anyways, so with just one look. He mentions one link of your necklace. So this was, she had a necklace on, obviously, on the Tower of David. As we've noted in the first chapter, she worked in the field, so she was dark, had a tan from being in the sun. But again, he says, how fair is your love, my sister, my spouse. Much better than wine, and the scent of your perfumes than all spices. So then again, he's complimenting her again. She's better than all that. Again, these spices were a big deal back then. I mean, spices were big money on the trade. I mean, they would have to trade, a lot of goats to get some spices and stuff like that. And the most expensive spices, frankincense and myrrh, were commonly used as those because they're so fragrant. And then the scent of her perfume, more than likely the perfumes were made from frankincense and myrrh. Not necessarily like they are now, but anyways, he finds her perfume enticing. So Solomon continues here, verse 11. Your lips, O my spouse, drip as a honeycomb. Honey and milk are under your tongue. and the fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. A garden enclosed is my sister, my spouse. A spring shut up, a fountain sealed. Your plants are an orchard of pomegranates, with pleasant fruits, fragrant henna with spikenard. Not how we say things today. But this was common back then. Okay. All right. Her lips are sweeter than honey. Paul's mentioned a number of times the difference between the imagery of honey, not only honey, but the honeycomb. Honeycomb is so sweet. It's where the best honey would collect. It was intense honey. That's one way to think of it. And then he says, honey and milk are under your tongue. Basically, she must have been a really sweet girl. Okay. And he just, he's laying it on thick. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that, exactly. All right, a garden enclosed. Okay. This is imagery as well. A locked garden. Kind of sexual in nature because a locked garden kind of leave it at that she's a virgin. And that the imagery of a locked garden is just that. And so he says, she is a locked garden, my sister, my spouse. A spring shut up, a fountain sealed. And I just said that, okay? He longs for her as a traveler would thirst for a water at a well. We see a number of times where people would travel in this part of the country. It's essentially mostly desert. And you would thirst, the animals would thirst. It would be a thirst most of us haven't experienced, I think. Okay. Plants here is another analogy that he believes her to be fertile. Orchard of pomegranates, there again is that very flavorful fruit. And henna with spikenard. Spikenard again, very aromatic. Continues on again. Spikenard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon, with all the trees of frankincense, myrrh and aloes, with all the chief spices, a fountain of gardens, a well of living waters, and streams from Lebanon. A lot of people use spices here. Have you ever used saffron? Have you ever bought saffron? Saffron is the most expensive spice in the entire world. It is made from the stamens of flowers. So it's laborious to actually create. They're sometimes called saffron threads. If you've ever seen saffron, you buy a little tiny, about a 1-inch square plastic baggie, and it has saffron threads in there. It's probably about $15. And they come from flowers. They're the inside threads. Fortunately, you don't need much to flavor something. It's usually used in rice. Indian food has saffron sometimes. Second most expensive spice is cardamom. also used in Indian food. But he goes on talking about a number of spices here. Don't really see calamus a lot. Cinnamon comes from the bark of a tree. Back then, cinnamon was very expensive. Not more expensive than saffron, but it was still expensive. Now it's pretty common. But he continues his analogy here of the locked garden. And she's very fertile, childbearing age. These were compliments to women. Okay. A fountain of gardens, a well of living waters, and streams of Lebanon. He anticipates consummating the marriage. Okay, here the Shulamite responds, verse 16, "Awake, O wind, O north wind, and come south. Blow upon my garden, that its spices may flow out. Let my beloved come to his garden and eat its pleasant fruits." Pretty explicit there. She's ready to unlock her garden. She's ready to consummate the marriage. They've been using imagery, and it's getting pretty hot. It's a way to look at it. And that's the end of chapter 4. And so I think this is really a good spot to stop. Yeah, let's just stop here. We have any questions? You got none? Okay. Okay.